All right, welcome everyone. Stephen Kreutzfeldt here. Today we're going to take a look at how we can use ABBYY to automatically create journal entries and bill headers in QuickBooks. So the first thing we're going to do is open up ABBYY FlexiCapture application. Make sure that you select your project. In this case, we're going to be working with Invoices today. Once in here, the steps are laid out for you to load the images. It's then going to recognize them and verify, and then export to Laserfiche, where they'll be stored, and Laserfiche workflow will then create the bill header. So to load our images, we'll select this, and I'm just going to choose a random Delta Dental invoice for today's demo. And as this recognizes, it's going to go through, OCR the document, and then match that to one of your vendors from an external vendor list. As you can see, it came in and it found a match to Delta Dental. So if you go in here, it looks like it's just not quite confident that it is in fact Delta Dental, but it's pretty sure. If we want to update that, we can go ahead and hit find. This will open up the external table. In this case, we're just using a SQLite list of 3 vendors. And we'll select Delta Dental, and we'll notice that it'll pop in and populate all of the other unknown fields. I also have it set up that we can validate each one of these by simply hitting enter. You'll notice they turn green. This will tell it that, yes, we have 100% confidence that each of these fields is correct. We'll also see that based on who it matched, it knew where to find the invoice number, so it pulled that in just fine. It also found the invoice date correctly, and it found the total, but it looks like there's an I tucked in there instead of a 1. Now, periodically, you will get little one-off OCR issues like that. That's why it's important to make sure that this does go to verification if confidence is below a certain level. We also managed to pull in each one of our line items. So we have the description, the quantity, unit price, and total. And then for this last field, we did make it required. This is linking to your chart of accounts, and so you can actually code the GL codes by simply using this dropdown. We figure since you're going to be validating this anyway, it would make sense to go ahead and do all the coding in the same step. Now, I don't want you to think that you have to use the dropdown each time. If you go in here and you start typing 10, I'm just going to use a basic cash account here. It'll automatically populate that. So same here, it looks like it did have a question mark on that 1. We can figure that out. And you do see me going through each one of these line items, but we can very easily queue it up so that if it's above a certain confidence level, it won't ask you to verify that, it won't ask you to validate it. It'll just know that this is in fact correct, and it'll have you jump to each unknown field. So if all this is correct and it looks good, we can save our changes, hit yes. We'll notice the red flag disappeared, so that means it's ready to go. If you want, you can run verification again, make sure that there is in fact nothing outstanding, and then it's ready to export. Now we have our documents set up so they're going to export directly to Laserfiche each time into a defined location that Laserfiche workflow sends them to. So we can go ahead and close this down and open up our Laserfiche client. And we'll see here we have a new invoice that came in, just invoice and 17 as the ID. If we pop that open, we can see our Delta Dental invoice, each of the pages as well. And it also populated all of the different metadata that we grabbed from those fields. So we have the vendor name, the invoice date, invoice number, total, as well as each line item, and most importantly, the GL code. So all of that's already coded. We have all the information we need to create our bill header in QuickBooks. Now, one thing I'm going to do just to make sure that we know which of these invoices need to be taken out anyway, is I'm going to give the invoice number just a test, and then today's date, 11/26/19. And I'm also going to change the date. That one caveat we have here is that it's not going to create a bill header or a journal entry for a accounting period that's already been closed. So we need to make sure that it's up to date. So we'll make sure 11/26/19 is there as well. So then we'll just want to make sure that we can save that. Once that's saved, we'll go ahead and close out of that invoice. I'm also going to move it into the test folder too, because that's where our workflow is going to be looking. And then we actually have a business process that we created specifically for this. So I'm going to go to my tasks, down to start, business process. Name of the business process, aptly named, QuickBooks Create Bills, Vendor Invoices. So if we start that, what it's actually going to do is grab each one of the invoices, grab all the information, line items, vendor name, etc., and create a bill header within QuickBooks automatically. So while that runs, we'll go ahead and pop open our QuickBooks instance. And we have this VB Demo 32 that's actually going to allow us to search for different bill headers. I'm going to look for the test reference number, test 112619, and run my query and see if that actually worked, if that created anything. And there we can see that it did. So tax ID, time created, time modified. If we open that up a little bit, we can see a few more. You'll notice it brought in the vendor address and all of the additional information to create that bill header. So there you go. That's a really quick introduction as to how you can scan invoices into ABBYY, store them in Laserfiche, and have that automatically create a bill header in QuickBooks. Thanks, everyone.